presentations. So Sam is first going to talk to us about the National Tree Warden Scheme. Over to you, Sam.
Hi, thanks very much, James. Yes, most of you have some of you have probably met me. I'm Sam Village. I'm the National Tree Warden Scheme Coordinator at the Tree Council, and I'm also a trustee of the Midlands Parks Forum. Prior to joining the Tree Council, I was working at Leicestershire County Council on a strategic green infrastructure project and countryside management project. During that time, the 20 years that I was there, I was also a tree warden coordinator. So I have lots of experience of actually coordinating a tree warden network before I joined the Tree Council. But today's presentation, I'm going to take you through a little bit of a background about the Tree Council, an introduction to the National Tree Warden Scheme, how tree wardens can benefit you as local authorities, and the benefits you may get if you want to sort of set up your own tree warden network. So next slide, please. So the Tree Council, we work closely with a range of national bodies such as DEFRA, the Forestry Commission, Food and Environment Research Agency, just to name a few, to help influence policy, legislation, and to bring about tangible positive effects for the UK's treescape. Where possible, we act as a conduit between these national bodies and local authorities, parishes, and tree warden networks. Next slide, please. So the Tree Council, we've been going strong. We're coming up to our 50 years anniversary in a couple of years. It all started in 1973 with the Plant a Tree in 73 campaign, which, as you probably know, was a response to Dutch elm disease and the huge devastating effect that had on the country. So the Tree Council was founded the year after that, in 1974, and the Tree Council launched the first National Tree Week. In 1987, as you perhaps quite remember, the huge disastrous storm of 87, we lost 15 million trees in one night. That, combined with the devastating effects of Dutch elm disease, which killed more than 25 million elm trees across the country, the Tree Council sort of led the way in working with local authorities and the public in recovery programmes to meet the challenges that were left by those two disastrous events, and working on examples from around the country. So there was existing tree warden networks in Leicestershire and East Sussex. The Tree Council used those to launch a national tree warden scheme in 1990, and this weekend is actually the 30th anniversary of that launch. So we're celebrating 30 years of tree wardens this year. We continue to set up tree wardens networks and to help benefit local authorities and their communities. There's real threats at the moment with the development of new pests and diseases impacting on our treescape. Ash dieback, potentially oak processionary moth is increasing across the country. So tree warden scheme is now more valuable than ever, and also things like tree planting, addressing climate change issues, biodiversity loss. So the need for tree wardens is huge. It's increasing, as I say. In 2020, this year, we've set some ambitious targets. Just put a couple of examples down there for you. So we're looking to create 3,000 new school orchards across the UK, and also setting up young tree champion clubs across schools in the UK. And we've got a partnership that we're doing with Network Rail. They've given us some funding to distribute. And so this year we're looking at planting 20,000 trees in National Tree Week as part of that partnership. And like I say, we're nearly 50 years on, and in 2023, we're hoping to have a campaign of Plant a Tree in 23. Next slide, please. So what the Tree Council do, I just thought I'd put this just to give you a bit of a flavour for all the different things that we get involved in. So practical science and research, we've created specifically to benefit local authorities, Ash Dieback Action Plan Toolkit, a practical guide to help councils plan their response to the devastating impacts of ash dieback, which is likely to lead to the loss of more than 60 million non-woodland ash trees in the years to come. Acute oak decline and oak processionary moth are another two areas of work that the Tree Council is involved with, again helping local authorities and tree warden networks manage these challenges. We've got the National Tree Wardens Scheme that I'm talking to you about today. We also have community grants available. We do major tree planting and care projects. As I mentioned in my introduction, we're involved in national policy and the School Orchards Programme and the Young Tree Champions Scheme. Next slide, please. So the National Tree Warden Scheme. Well, tree wardens are a national force of local tree champions, and they're a key part to the Tree Council's Community Action Programme. As I mentioned, we launched the scheme in 1990, and we coordinate the scheme nationally. So we work with local authorities, voluntary organisations, parish councils and local partnerships to set up and develop tree wardens in both towns, cities and the countryside, so rural areas. Today, there are many thousands of tree wardens in local networks across the UK, forming a volunteer force of immense value to the environment. Together, they devote nearly 2 million volunteer hours to trees a year, and their time is worth about £13 million if you want to put it into monetary value. The goals of the Tree Council are quite simple: make trees matter to everyone, plant more trees of the right kind in the right place, provide better care for all trees of all ages, inspire effective action for trees. And so tree wardens are really key to delivering this. Next slide, please. So how does it work? Well, we have our Tree Council with the umbrella organisation. As part of that, tree wardens belong to local networks throughout the UK. These networks ideally are coordinated through local authorities, but where this isn't possible, then independent constituted community groups are set up as a tree warden network. These networks are sort of semi-autonomous, which means they can decide their own priorities for trees in their area. This is really important, as obviously every area will have its own unique opportunities for action. However, all tree wardens and tree warden coordinators do come under the umbrella of the National Tree Warden Scheme. So we do set out some guidelines for the roles and responsibilities of a tree warden and a tree warden coordinator. We also provide things like branding and logos that they can use, and those logos have been designed specifically for their network. We also have set up a National Tree Warden Advisory Group. This National Advisory Group came out of a response to networks and coordinators saying that they wanted a forum where there could be a think tank for tree wardens and a group of representatives that they can that represents each region of the UK that they can connect to, who then have a connection to the Tree Council. So that's how it sort of works. And as I say, tree wardens sort of are part of their local network, but have a connection to the Tree Council. Next slide, please. So what does a tree warden actually do? We don't have a prescribed job description for tree wardens. Like we say, each area, there will be different priorities in terms of tree action, but there are three key sort of areas of activity. So tree planting, tree care, and carrying out sort of more discrete projects. But under tree care, that also covers things like watering, weed control, checking stakes and guards, pruning, carrying out discrete projects. We have tree wardens who get involved in recording trees that fit, help build that picture of tree canopy and the tree health as well, get involved in tree health surveys, citizen science programs, and they can really build into a local authority's picture of what their treescape is in their area. Tree planting, identifying sites for new tree planting, and that could be tree planting in orchards, hedgerows, memorial trees, for example, restoring woodlands, creating small woodlands, creating wildlife corridors, etc. Some of them, and more increasingly, are getting involved in growing trees from seed and creating tree nurseries. This has become really important and quite a popular activity as we look at, you know, the increase in pests and diseases, and tree wardens recognise, you know, the need to collect seeds from local healthy trees for growing locally and planting locally. So we're seeing a huge increase in the number of community tree nurseries, and we're developing resources to be able to help tree wardens with that. And we also have tree wardens who have run things like Save a Sapling scheme, where they will work with the local authority to set up, it could be part of a green space, a park, or in an allotment or something, where they can take saplings from the local community that people have either dug up, you know, they're sort of grown in their gardens and they don't want them, or they've perhaps grown trees from seed and don't know what to do with them. They sort of save those saplings, if you like, put them into this tree nursery, and then those can be distributed to local community planting projects. So it's quite a range, and like I say, we're not too specific. We don't have a job description, if you like, for tree wardens. Next slide, please. And when time and resources are limited, as is the case in so many local authorities, projects around tree surveying, monitoring, community engagement, awareness raising, you know, sometimes for a local authority, they can just feel like they're just items on a wish list. Even tree planting, you know, you want to go out and be able to do all this stuff, but it's being able to have the resources to make it happen. Investing in a tree warden network can be really important, because it can help those projects, all those things on your wish list, come into fruition by working with, you know, people in the community who are really passionate about trees. Tree wardens are the eyes, ears and voice for trees in their local area, and their activities can be shaped to help benefit you as a local authority. Once set up, a network can be effective in achieving practical outcomes, like I say, that otherwise possibly are unobtainable for council officers trying to do it on their own. Volunteer tree wardens can really add value to local authorities by working within the community on projects that ultimately improve the local treescape. This strengthens the council's reputation, it helps build networks, and it helps really improve and develop relationships within the wider community. And we've got lots of examples of tree wardens across the country doing this. You know, recently, tree wardens in the Wirral, they brought together a network of wildlife conservation, environmental and heritage groups to provide a series of policy papers. These policy papers were then shaped together with the Borough Council to create the Borough Council's tree strategy. In Tendring in Essex, we have a tree warden there who's working very closely with his tree officer to, their ambition is to plant 30,000 trees to celebrate 30 years of tree wardens. And how they're doing that is by developing a hedgerow project, working with farmers and landowners to put in new hedgerows. But also part of that project is they've got an ancient orchard in Tendring. They've been grafting the fruit varieties from that ancient orchard, which I think was established in 1880. And they want to increase the number, you know, spread those species of apples and pears within these hedgerows that they're planting with the farmers and landowners. In Leicestershire, we've had tree wardens who have done hedgerow surveys, which have helped the local authority in terms of biodiversity opportunity mapping, excuse me, and targeting their local community grant schemes. In Leicester City, tree wardens are linked to their parks, and tree wardens within each of the parks, they're trained, as far as I understand, to level 1 Arbor Association tree inspection qualification. And so the City Council are engaging tree wardens in actually helping them carry out their tree inspections and their sort of tree inspections. So there's a whole range of, they're just to give you a few examples. I mean, we've got networks across the UK doing all sorts of fabulous work. And also, sorry, I should mention Birmingham Tree People. They're a member of the Tree Council Tree Warden Scheme. And I'm sure, as Simon might mention them later, as he's talked about, they've done some absolutely fantastic work in Birmingham, planting a huge number of trees, training people, volunteers, working with the community. So that, we've got networks in Warwick, Solihull, Leicester, Leicestershire, Lincolnshire. So they're really spread across the Midlands area. Next slide, please. So if you want to, if you become or develop a tree warden network as a member of the Tree Council's Tree Warden Scheme, you will receive support and advice about setting up and running a new tree warden network. You will receive the monthly branching out e-newsletter, access to our community grant funding for tree planting projects, and access to things like the regional tree warden forums and coordinator conferences. We're also developed a package of tree warden training modules that will be available to all networks. And as I said before, the use of the branding and a logo designed specifically for your network, access to things like your the tree wardens themselves will have access to the Tree Warden Facebook page, where they can connect to tree wardens across the UK, and also opportunities to attend national forums and get involved with the Tree Council on debates on relating, about tree related issues. And also you have access to the Tree Council team and all the advice and support that we offer as a team. So I'll leave it like that. Sorry, next slide. I've put up my contact details. I mean, there's a lot more we could talk about, but I've tried to keep it as brief as possible for today. But if you are interested in finding out more, please do contact me at the Tree Council, because we're very much, about working with the local community, with the local authority to set up a network that is beneficial to you. So not all networks are set up in the same way. We have some local authorities that set up their network where, like Leicester City, they appoint tree warden volunteers direct within their parks. But then, like other local authorities like Leicestershire and West Sussex, their local authority and Cornwall, they don't directly appoint their tree wardens. They act as the coordinator, but tree wardens are actually appointed by parish and town councils. So there's like a different model, if you like, depending on what you would like your network to be set up. So we're here to explore that with you and really to set up a network that's beneficial to you and fits within what you would like to get out of it as well, and also fits with what the community would like to do. So I'll leave it like that. I think, Liz, am I right in thinking we've got some opportunity for questions?
That's right.
Thanks, Sam. That's great. I've got a bit of an echo from somewhere. So feel free, anybody, to chip in questions, unmute yourself and chip in, or stick them in the chat if you want. If there's none immediately, so Sam, I've got a couple of, I'll kick off. What's the background to the Tree Council? What funds it? Why does it? How does it come about in terms of, how is it actually funded and how is it structured?
We are a charity. So, oh, that's a good question, James. In terms of how we're funded, I might have to get back to you on that one.
Okay.
But sorry, I should know.
That's right.
Yeah.
That wasn't deliberately to put you on the spot and catch you out. I'm sorry if I've done that. I was kind of just curious because obviously it's an area where people are always seeking funding, aren't they? And just curious as to the background of how the actual council is funded. So my other question was then sort of related to funding was when you started saying about school orchards and training tree wardens and tree planting schemes, obviously we've got a chat later in the AOB about the Green Recovery Fund that's just opened this week, and I was wondering if it's something that the Tree Council is looking at, or whether actually there might be other people in the room today who are thinking about that. I know that, for example, Rob, who's our tree manager here in Nottingham, has just joined us, and we're looking at quite an extensive element of tree planting and tree planting site finding as part of a green recovery bid, and that's wonder if that's something the Tree Council is getting involved in at all.
Yeah, we are. I can't go into the details of what our bid is about at the moment, but yes, we are looking at putting in a bid in partnership with others to the green recovery. We have secured substantial funding through Network Rail. So we've recently been able to employ a national tree planting programs manager through that scheme. And also it's enabled us, we've got quite a large pot of money to be able to give out as part of our community grants programme for tree planting. So the details of that are on our website. And also we've received funding from other sources. So our community orchards programme, we've got, I think it's about £500,000 through a campaign that was run through a national newspaper. And so that funding came to the Tree Council to be able to deliver these community schools orchards. And again, it also enabled us to employ a national schools programmes manager. And Richard, his role is to deliver the orchards as well as the Young Tree Champions networks across schools in the UK.
Great. So I guess if people were, for example, going back to the Green Recovery Fund, putting in tree or arboricultural elements to their bids, that linking up to the Tree Council within that, would be, you'd welcome that, I presume.
Yes, I'm sure we would. I mean, we'd like, I think we'd like it if people sort of contacted us to let us know that that was their intention. But yeah, no, I'm sure we would.
But even just setting up sort of tree warden schemes within our areas, you've got a model there we can potentially follow.
Definitely.
James, could I just add something to that? Sam and I had a conversation this morning, just exploring the exact same thing about what role the Midlands Parks Forum could play in sort of facilitating some of this. So yeah, it's definitely on our minds as well. As we'll talk about a bit later, obviously, when we talk about the recovery fund. But yeah, we've had some really good conversations this morning, and I think it's something that we can certainly promote a little bit more.
Great. Okay. Great. Okay. Any other questions from anyone else around the room? Nothing in the chat at the moment. Okay, well, if anybody thinks of anything, just add it to the chat. Sam's got her contact details on that previous slide, so we'll share that obviously in the recording of the meeting and on the PowerPoint when it's shared. So we'll move on to our next speaker, who's Simon, who's going to talk to us about Birmingham Tree City. Simon, over to you.
Thanks very much, James. I hope you can all hear me okay.
Yep. Great.
Good, thank you. Thanks, Sam, just for mentioning the Birmingham Tree people there. Just to add to that, it's a combination of both the tree wardens and our partner organisation as well, Birmingham Trees for Life, who have delivered much of the tree planting over the last few years. So both are members of the Tree Council and have been delivering great work for a number of years. So thanks very much for having me. This is a little bit about, I suppose, a fairly recent accreditation or designation that has been launched called Tree Cities of the World. Back in 2018, the World Forum of Urban Forests met in Mantova, and there was a national challenge call for action, which was backed by the United Nations Agriculture and Forestry Organization, and pulling on a lot of the work that was done by the Arbor Day Foundation over in America with their Tree Cities USA. The Tree Cities of the World scheme was launched. Birmingham was one of the first in the world to go for this accreditation. I think there's about 58, I think 60 around the world were accredited in 2019 as Tree City of the World. So this is just a little bit about Birmingham and how we achieve that, and what sort of information we put together. and it'd be great if we could encourage others who are perhaps listening in for their cities or towns to go for this. I suppose partly the biggest reason we went for this was to try and put trees and tree management a bit more out there up front, be more transparent with it, and sort of get people to recognise that others independently have seen us as managing our trees well, despite what other people might think sometimes. Yeah, so although we often say to people, you know, well, we do have a good tree management policy in processes in place, having it externally recognised, I think, sort of adds something to that weight of what we're saying. So if we have the next slide, please. Right, so some of you probably have seen some of these stats before, because I know Joe's on and Simon's on, so you may have seen, or they may have mentioned this before, but Birmingham is about 103 square miles in total. There's about 24 square miles of green infrastructure, just over 9 square miles of designated conservation sites. We've got 5.4 square miles of designated woodlands in parks and open spaces, and brook courses and rivers as well across the city. And that map there gives a bit of a sort of indication of the distribution across the city of those green spaces, but obviously interlinked around all of that is the all the other trees that we have as well, those on the highways and those in private gardens as well. Next slide, please. So as Sam mentioned a little bit earlier about the canopy mapping and some of the work that the tree wardens have been doing, and this map here is off the Forest Research Canopy UK mapping, and it's one that some of our tree wardens have contributed to, but also some of the parks tree officers have spent time going through mapping out the city's canopy. I think most of us probably are aware that UK has one of the lowest canopy coverages in Europe, around 13% compared to the European average of 35%. England on its own has just 10% canopy cover. So Birmingham at around 18.6% is doing pretty well, but we still have some way to go to catch up with those European counterparts. But if you look at the map there, you can see that that's the city divided into wards. It's sort of the main elongated blob, because that's actually that shows Birmingham and the Black Country more or less. The different colours indicate different intensities or levels of canopy cover. So the darker the green areas are more heavily treed, the lighter areas are less treed. So there's a massive variance across the city. So we've got some of the inner city wards, most of those most deprived, with the lowest canopy, and those are around 9% canopy cover. All those darker green ones, especially some towards the north of the city, are around 30 or 35% canopy cover. So real variances across the city there. Next slide, please. So as I already mentioned, the Trees to the World programme was launched, and the idea was that a city or an area could be assessed against 5 core standards, and these are the 5 core standards here. We'll have a quick look through each of those over the next few slides, but they were about establishing responsibility, setting rules, knowing what you have, allocating the resources, and celebrating the achievements of not only of those volunteers, but also the members of staff who carry out the city's tree programs as well. So we can move on to the next one. I think you can probably skip straight through into the one after, because it was on some fancy transition. Right, so we were lucky enough to host the president of the Arbor Day Foundation in 2019 when he came over. So this is all some of the information that we were presenting then, and this is the basis of the information that went forward as part of our application. So first, what the first category is about establishing responsibility, and within Birmingham we've got a number of different organisations or sections of the city that are responsible for the tree management, and we all came together as part of this project. So not only did we have the City Council's officers, so the Parks tree officers, we also had myself who works with planning, and we also had the PFI contractors at the time, so Amy were on board. We also had Birmingham Trees for Life, we had our tree people, we had Trees for Cities as well who were on board, and we also had the backing of a number of our councillors and cabinet members as well. So we had a really good backing to go forward for this application, and we could set out quite clearly how this responsibility was set out. So with the chief exec having, I suppose, ultimately the responsibility for all trees, but then Parks being responsible for those BCC owned trees outside the public highway. Amy at the time, is now Kia, managing those highway trees. And then in my role as planning, we were responsible for trees through the planning process and looking at the TPOs and conservation area works. We have reporting on all those through annual assurance statements and KPI data. And then we also have the other major landowners within the city as well, so Calthorpe Estates and Bourneville Village Trust, both of which I work with fairly closely and have their own guiding policies around their tree management. But it's all very similar. We're all thinking along the same lines, luckily. And we also set out the fact that in 2018 we had a tree policy review which identified the need to form a multi-stakeholder group or tree board to have an overview of Birmingham's tree management and progress towards targets, setting out a new tree and woodland strategy. So that last little bit there, that's still to go, but we have been implementing the tree policy review targets as we've been going through. So hopefully this year, early next, we should be forming this multi-stakeholder group for the tree board. Next slide, please. In fact, actually, you can skip through to the one after. So the next one is standard setting the rules. So for this, the sorts of information we were providing to for our application was around those sorts of policies that we have relating to management of our tree stock. And for us, we have contractors to the city who have clear guidance on tree pruning standards, so they're undertaking work to the BS 3998. We know that they have levels of qualification and competency for the staff within the contracts, and there are clauses for penalties for non-compliance with those policies and processes. Work to TPO trees. Well, we've, as those of you out there who deal with tree work and tree applications will know that there's an expectation that work on trees should be undertaken to the highest standards, and poor tree work could see action taken against those owners or contractors, especially if it exceeds that kind of sort of authorised level of works. And so again, in here, we were just mentioning that in 2017-18, we had the review of the tree policies. It was undertaken by a cross-party group of elected members supported by BCC officers. And that established 12 recommendations for approval, or 12 recommendations for changes in our policies, I suppose, to help sort of bring our tree policies more in line with current thinking and best practices. And that include things like improving working practices in relation to highway infrastructure projects. So we now have a process whereby our highways design teams not only have to have the tree surveys carried out to BS 5837, but they also have to have the financial value of the trees calculated as well using CAVAT. So that's a double way of them sort of identifying those trees of value that should be being retained in terms of highways development projects. And we've also just about to go into planning inspectorate review of a change of our planning policy where CAVAT is being written into our planning policies as well. So developers will have to consider the CAVAT values and the replacements, the CAVAT value of the replacements that they're putting in as part of their development projects. So we're trying to really strengthen the way trees are seen and considered within these sorts of developments and projects. And all that's going to add up to an overarching tree and woodland strategy that encompasses all aspects of managing the Birmingham forest. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the next one then was about knowing what we have. So it's surprising, I think, when you start to talk to people, just how much information they sometimes have and don't realise on their tree stock, and perhaps have maybe not used that always to their best advantage. But so our tree stock is, I suppose we've got lucky that the publicly owned tree stock is subject to regular inspections as part of its commitment to providing safe and healthy tree populations. And as part of that, data is collected using geographical information systems and GPS, and that's stored on using tree inventory software. So in understanding what we've got, we're able to extract data on tree species, tree condition, the diameter, breast height, the age class, the location, and we're able to use that information to give us a bit more indication about perhaps what we should be doing with our urban forest and the direction that we're going. It's not easy to see on that that pie chart there, but that's just an example of some analysis of our parks tree data. So this is all the trees in parks that were individually plotted. So it doesn't account for the large conglomerations of trees in woodlands. But this is a total of 137 or nearly 138,000 trees. They're covering 82 genus. So there's quite a wide spread of tree species there. Now, one of the things that we're looking at in terms of managing our urban forest is trying to ensure that going forward we get decent spreads of tree families, genus and species in order to provide greater resilience within the urban forest. So, Sam mentioned earlier about using tree wardens to keep an eye out for new pests and diseases or newly arriving ones. And this is one of our ways that we can help do that. So, for example, if we knew that a significant proportion of our tree stock was ash trees, for example, we know that we might lose significant numbers to ash dieback. So that can help guide us going forward in terms of what are we going to plant, where do we need to focus action, where might we have management issues going forward. The same goes for maybe things like London planes or limes. What happens if something attacks those. If you look at a lot of tree stock, you'll find that there's quite a lot of trees within the Rosaceae family. If you think about all the prunus, the Crataegus, they're all within Rosaceae. And if something was to happen to that, I'm sure some cities and certainly sections of the cities would lose significant numbers of trees. So resilience is one of the big things that we'll be looking at going forward. Next slide, please. Let's get through. So allocating resources. So with the Tree Cities USA program, that's been running since 1976, and one of their key things there was that there should be a spend of $2 per capita on tree management, and so we sort of equated that across. So trying to get an exact figure from the city was difficult, but roughly the city allocates about £4.1 million per annum to its tree management, and that covers all aspects of delivering that. So that's all the contracted staff, that's like the planning tree officers, the parks tree officers, all the contracted works, etc. That's everything come together. So with a population of about 1.1 million, that's about £3.81 per capita. But if we consider the ecosystem services that are being delivered by that combined tree stock, it's somewhere around £46 million per annum. So the investment in the tree management and the urban forest is certainly repays in terms of those benefits that we're getting out of that. As Sam mentioned, the volunteer groups provide a fantastic resource, an additional additional staff hours that we can equate to value in time. Joe will have mentioned previously, I'm sure, about all the hours that the Friends of Parks groups deliver, but just alone on the Birmingham, on our two sort of tree-related groups here, Birmingham Trees for Life, they raise funds annually to support the tree planting in the city. Since 2006, actually I need to revise that figure. In partnership with BCC, they planted 85,000 trees. It's actually nearly 100,000 now, because this presentation was from 2019, so we've gone through another planting season, engaging 12,500 individuals, including school children, and putting in about volunteer time of around near £13,000 per annum. Birmingham Tree People are a slightly more recently formed group. We've got 76 people signed up to a training program, so we're delivering training to sort of ABC level 2 certificate of arboriculture sort of level. The group itself have just looking to see whether they can register through as an accredited provider for that, so they may be able to deliver accredited training to level 2 for tree wardens. And over the last 3 years, the value of their time is about nearly £5,000. So that all adds up to a significant resource being put towards the management of the city's trees. Next slide, please. So the last standard was around celebrating what you have and what you do, celebrating achievements. And while some cities or some countries have a national day Some cities may have a day of the week or that they dedicate as an Arbor Day. That's particularly popular in America. We found that there were a number of different national days and celebrations around trees and woods, and we actually found that in joining with people like our ranger service and the tree planting groups, that we were able to sort of show that we were celebrating trees sort of throughout the year. So, within seed gathering season, the ranger service have in the past run walks and talks and activities around gathering seeds, looking at trees. National Tree Week, we've done activities around looking after our trees, looking to undertake general health assessments and maintenance on newly planted trees. Tree dressing is something that I've done in the past. I can't say I particularly do that very, very often. It's not everybody's seen dangling things from trees. But then one of the big things was to get around the tree plantings that we were delivering. So with around 30 tree planting and education activities that Birmingham Trees for Life were delivering, that sort of really pushed forward the fact that we were engaging with the wider community and celebrating trees and woodlands throughout the city. One of the things that we put here was that it was quite some years ago now, we held our last working forest event, and I think it was something that we'd like to have seen being delivered again. Maybe that's something for the future. I know that we were looking to have an Arbor Day, of our first Birmingham Arbor Day this year in April, where we were going to have quite a number of different events. We'd got stalls arranged for the city centre. We were going to have sort of a moving forest coming together on bicycles. We were having contractors delivering work for charitable organisations. So we were having a lot of different things, but unfortunately, they had to be postponed because it was right at the start of lockdown. So that's something for us to take forward. So I suppose this was really just to give you a bit of a flavour of the accreditation, and for us, I think we were asked why we would apply for this accreditation, and I suppose our answer to that was, well, why not? As I said at the start, for us, one of the things that we wanted to do was raise the profile of just how much management and time and effort goes into managing the urban forest, and raise the value of it. And I think this accreditation is the start of doing that. I think the more cities that we can get, and towns, cities, boroughs that we can get meeting these standards, the more people will understand that there are people out there who do have trees and the urban forests at heart, and are working to get the best out of those for everybody. And so, yeah, I mean, last year it was, I think originally in the advert it said there was 2 cities in the UK that achieved Tree City of the World status, and that's true because it was Birmingham City and Bradford City, but Barking and Dagenham, Camden, Ealing, and Welling and Hatfield also were successful in achieving that accreditation. So I suppose my challenge to anybody out there is if you've got a good tree stock, then why don't you have a go at applying for the status? If you need any help, happy to give you that. Applications are open now.
Great, brilliant. Thank you very much, Simon. That was excellent. So we've got some time for questions again. If anybody wants to chip in or stick them in chat. I know Phil has asked about your policies, and that's been shared in the chat. If anyone hasn't seen it, so there's a link there. So is that document the main kind of policy document, the February 2018 one, Simon?
We have a tree management strategy or tree management policy which is in place, which was written some time ago, but has been, I suppose, had the 2018 tree policy review as an addendum. I've been working over the last couple of years to implement each one of those recommendations and embed those into policy. So that's been taking some time. So I think it would have been very easy for us just to get, well, I say very easy, it's been time consuming, but easy to get together and write a brand new strategy and then sort of impose that on everybody. But I think we would probably have met a lot more resistance than the way around I've been doing it, which is sort of from the bottom up, encouraging and developing these individual policies. So changing the way that highways infrastructure work, changing the way that planning is delivering its policies, changing the way that our housing developers are working, bringing these ideas through, developing them jointly with them, so that actually when we come to implementing the policy, these things come into reality, they're not a big shock. They're not something they're going to balk at. So the last thing really for me will be to pull together all of these into one new strategy, which then will be on the web. But the recommendations are available on the web at the moment.
Right. And I was going to ask myself, so in terms of all of those different departments that you just mentioned, and politically, how big a job was it, or how easy was it to get that initial buy-in to becoming this international tree city, and has that helped with the budget situation, or at least safeguarded the budget you had?
I can't say it's helped with the budget, but I think it may go a little way to safeguarding that. I mean, I think the buy-in from the two cabinet members who were very supportive of this was actually quite easy, because they've both had quite a lot of involvement in the natural environment before. So Councillor John O'Shea's cabinet member for he covers Fleet and Waste, but he also covers parks. So he has a significant amount of the tree portfolio, cover within his portfolio. And the other one, Councillor Zafar, he's cabinet member for transport and environment, so he covers planning. But he'd also been the council's representative on our Birmingham Trees for Life tree committee as well. So he'd got trees at heart. And so I had an existing relationship with him through that organisation. So bringing those two on board was quite easy. The highways officers working for the PFI company used to be part of the city's own staff before they were sort of TP'd out to the contractor. So they were quite easy to bring on board. I used to work for parks, so that was fairly straightforward. And then sitting in planning, that was just me. So the other two organisations, I think it was really quite easy to bring together, but it was following the review of the tree policies, which was really championed, I suppose, by Birmingham Trees for Life and a few others, just around loss of street trees, and that's what sort of spurred that on.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Alison just asked if you could share any links you've got about the training that Birmingham Tree people have delivered or gone through.
Yeah, I will do. I mean, we're currently got an application in with ABC at the moment, so we're going through that process, looking at getting accredited, or they're going through the process looking at getting accredited. But I can share some information, on that.
Right. Perfect. Okay. Any other questions then from anybody around the room? Either unmute yourself or feel free to stick them in the chat. Okay. I think that's it for now then, Simon. So if anything else comes up, we'll grab you. But thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Well, Alison's got my email, so just pass anything on and I'll answer directly. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thanks very much. Cheers. Okay.
Great.
Thanks, Simon.
Bye.
Okay, so we've got quite a number of